Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to be looking at another foundation skill in science, which is drawing graphs. So what we're going to look at in this short video is we're going to just talk about some top tips when it comes to graph drawing. We're going to talk about two acronyms that also might help you with this, and the first one is SLAP UK and the second one is dry mix. So what on earth does all of that mean and how does it work with graph drawing? Okay, well, a couple of things. First off, top tips. Whenever you draw any graph whatsoever, the first thing you should be doing is you should be getting out a pencil and you should be getting out a ruler. These two things are vital for drawing a graph. First thing, scientists love straight lines, which is why we have a ruler involved. Okay, we don't just draw graphs freehand. Second thing, we need a pencil just in case we make some mistakes, okay, because it can happen, and certainly if you're doing exam questions involving graphs, there's nothing worse than doing it in pen, making a mistake and being a bit stuck with how to correct it. If you use a pencil, just rub it out, nice and simple. Okay, so you've got your pencil and your ruler, you've got some data, which is what I've got down here. This is my data. So what do we do and where do we start? Right, let's get going with our first thing, which is talking about scale. What do we mean by scale? Well, we mean by having the right lines, and we need to have it taking up as much of the sort of area that you're provided with as possible. If you're asked to draw a graph, don't draw it in the corner of a piece of A4 paper. You'd want to use as much as possible. It actually makes identifying points on your graph easier. So, where do we begin with all of this? Well, I've said scale is the first thing. The reason I've said scale is because I'm going to use this acronym to help us, which is SLAPUK. Okay, SLAP UK. And what do each of these things mean? Well, the first one is scale. The second one is lines. Then we have axes. Then we have points. Then we have units. And then we have key. Now what this is, it's not an order in how to do things, it's a checkpoint at the end to make sure you've got it all. So where do we actually start with our graph? Well, the first thing you've got to do is identify what goes where, and that's where our dry mix comes in. Okay, so what does dry mix stand for? Well, dry mix helps us identify what goes where. Dependent, rules, Y, and then M is make, independent, X. So what we've got to do is we've got to identify what our independent variable is and what our dependent variable is. So in this particular experiment here, okay, our time is our independent variable and our volume of gas is our dependent variable. Now, what do I mean by X and Y? So these are the axes. So the Y-axis is the axis that goes up and down. The X-axis is the one that goes across. What we know about our graph is that the volume of gas goes on the left here. In centimeters cubed. And down the bottom, we've got our time in seconds. Next up, I've got to start thinking about actually putting in my scale and drawing in some of my graph. So what I would do at this stage is I would have a look at how many boxes that I've got. Okay, so along the bottom here, okay, some graph papers have things marked in tens, okay, but I would sort of work out how much space I've actually got on my graph, because I want to make sure that I give it the biggest sort of range that I possibly can. So it takes up most of the paper. So we've got sort of going from 0 to 60. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to sort of bring it in a little bit from the corner of the paper. So you don't want to start your graph here. Okay, you want to bring it in ever so slightly. So we're going to start it here, and we're going to start with our origin. Okay, so our origin is going to be, okay, at this point just here. Now what I'm then going to do is I'm then going to draw my graph out from that point. Now what I might do is, rather than draw the line straight on, is I might have a little bit of time where I plan, okay, how it's going to go. So I could sort of imagine in my head, I could go, well, this is going to be about 10, this could be 20, 30. I'd probably start thinking, hang on, this isn't the best way of doing this. I could do this a little bit better. So how about we make our scale a little bit bigger? Okay, so how about we make it 4 squares for every 10? Well, 4's not great because that tends to make it a little bit difficult because 10 isn't divisible by 4. What about 5? Well, that's quite good because then that would mean that each box is 2. Okay, so let's do that. 5 boxes. So we've got to here. So that's 10. So the first 5, second 5, third 5, fourth, fifth, and 6th. Perfect. Okay, so we know that that would fit. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to draw in my line, okay, across my axes just there. Awesome. Oh, let's get that nice and straight. Here we go. See, this will be easy for you because you're going to be using a pen and paper. There we go, nice and straight. Awesome. So now we need to do the same thing, but for the other scale. So this time what I'm going to do is I've got to go up to 55. So again, I might sort of do 5s. 2, 5, and 10 are pretty good numbers to work with. So if I did it in 2s, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh, I don't think that's quite going to fit. So maybe I'll do it in 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. Uses about half of my graph paper. I could do a little bit more because of the graph paper size that I've got to do each box as 5. Good numbers to go for when you're drawing graphs is sort of 1, 2, 5, and 10. They make quite good numbers. So there we go. We've gone up to 60 on that side because that's roughly how big I need that one. Okay, and then again, I've got to draw in my little line across here. Get it nice and straight. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our graph. What's our next point? So what we've done successfully so far is we have done our scale. Okay, what we've also done is we've also done our axes because we've got them the right way around. So next on the list is to do our points. Okay, so now we're on to plotting our points. Now when we plot points, okay, what we could do is we could use a number of different symbols. Okay, we could use crosses, we could use dots, but my personal favourite is I like using a cross like this that's in line with the graph paper. Reason being is that then when you've actually finished the graph, it makes it a bit easier to spot certain sort of patterns and various other things. So let's stick with this one, okay, and we're going to plot our points. So the first point we've got is 0, 0. So I want to make sure it's nice and in line, and I'm going to mark it on there. Next one I've got is at 10 seconds, and it goes up to 20. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to finish marking these points, and you'll see the graph when it's finished. Right, there we go. I've finished plotting on each of those points, and what you'll notice is the last couple of points here, and what we've got is we've gone just in between the lines, okay, but a little bit higher than halfway because it's 3, not 2. It's 53, not 52. So what we've done there is we've successfully plotted our points. Okay, so the next thing we've got is we've got lines. Okay, so what's our lines? Well, that's just drawing in our line. Okay, so what we've got to do is we've got to add a line of best fit to this. Now, depending on what science you're doing, depends on what line of best fit you do. Depend on what exam board you have, depends on what line of best fit you're doing. As a chemist, I like to do curves of best fit. Okay, so what we do is we draw a nice single curve that goes through each of the points. Okay, now that's not a bad effort using a graphics pad on the side. Tips for this one, well, what you could do is you could get a ruler and bend that ruler so it's in a nice curved shape. I know in biology they do dot to dot, so again you would use your ruler to line it up. But there we go, I've drawn on my line of best fit. Okay, so that's our lines done. What else have we got on our list to do? Well, we've got units and key. What do units refer to? Well, units refer to the fact of have I got units written onto my graph. So I've got centimetres over here and seconds here. So yes, I've got my units. Well, what about a key? Well, a key is if you have multiple things on your graph. So let's say we were to do this experiment again, okay, with a different chemical. What we might do is we might use a key. So let's say this was chemical A. Let's say I repeat it. I would plot it maybe in a different color, and that would be chemical B, as an example. And that's what we mean by a key. When you've only got one set of data, do you need a key? No, so I can tick that one off. Okay, so as I said, that little checklist is there to help you look at your graph at the end. So there we go. Let's have a look at this graph. It's done, it's plotted, we've got a really nice line of best fit. So let's go through a quick summary. First off, top tips. So make sure you've got a pencil and a ruler. Remember, SLAP UK and dry mix. SLAP UK is a really good checklist at the end. Scale, lines, axes, points, units, and key. Have you got all of those things? Do you need all of those things? Dry mix helps you with making the actual graph at the beginning. Dependent rules Y, make independent X. Other little tips, just to remember from this video, what kind of points you use to plot your graph is important. I like the little cross that I've left in orange because it allows you to see things nice and clearly on a graph. One more tip, okay? When we're coming to make the graph, think about the kinds of numbers that are good to sort of sort out your scale. Okay, so numbers that are good, you've obviously got 1, 2, 5s, and 10s are pretty good numbers to go for, okay, when you're actually deciding what scale to use. Okay, so hopefully this video was a nice little intro into drawing graphs, okay? Hopefully it just highlights a couple of the key things to do when you're drawing a graph. Go out there, practice drawing some graphs. When you do experiments, you will draw lots of them, okay? They're really, really important. Or what you could do is you could do exactly the same thing on Excel, and I will make a video on that too, because again, it's a useful skill to know. So thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will catch you in the next video.